To finish this project, let's now learn about a technique called refactoring in order to get rid of some of our duplicate code. So, as I said by the end of the last lecture, we have some repeated code in our project. And more specifically, where we can really see this is in these two scenarios, where the guess is too high and where the guess is too low. So here, this code is really almost the same as this code down here. The only thing that really changes is this string here. So this message that we display if the guess is too high or if it's too low. And so having a lot of duplicate code, remember, violates the don't repeat yourself principle. So the dry principle. So right now, all of this code here is not dry. Now, why is it actually so bad to have duplicate code, you might ask? Well, one of the answers is that whenever we have duplicate code, when we then want to change some functionality, we have to change the same code in multiple places. For example, we might want to change the message when the player loses the game. So this one here, right? And then we would have to change it here and here. And in a small example like this, it's not a big problem, but it can quickly become a nightmare for a bigger code base. So try to avoid duplicate code whenever you can. However, when we first write the code, then it's no big problem to start out with duplicate code. And so that's why I did it like this here. That's why we have this duplicate code, because I just wanted to make it work. But then as we move on in the project, we can use a technique called refactoring. And refactoring basically means to restructure the code, but without changing how it works. So basically, we do refactoring to improve the code and to eliminate duplicate code. And so let's now start to refactor all of this code here that we just talked about before. So the first step of refactoring is to identify duplicate or almost duplicate code like we already have here. So this code here is almost the same as this one, with this string here being the only exception. And so what we're going to do now is a way to eliminate half of this code here, basically. So how are we going to do that? Well, this first if block here checks if the guess is too high, and this one checks if the guess is too low. But in both cases, what we're really doing is to check if the guess is different from the secret number, right? So whenever the guess is different from the secret number, then all of this code here should get executed, right? Where the only thing that changes is this string. So instead of having one big block for the case where the guess is too high and one for when the guess is too low, let's just have one block for the situation where the guess is different. So let me actually add a new else if block here, and then we delete these two, okay? So here, else if, and then this moves down here, and then when guess is wrong, basically. And so that means basically the opposite of this. So here we have when the player wins is guess equal secret number. But here, when the guess is wrong, it means that guess is different from secret number. And so now we can just take this code, which is the same in the two blocks. I will copy it and paste it here. So this is what should happen, except that the too high should of course only happen when the guess is larger than the secret number. So now we still need a conditional to figure out if the guess is greater or lower than the secret number. Now what I'm going to do here is to actually use a ternary operator. And so let me show you how. So I will say when the guess is greater than the secret number, then here the string should be too high. And if not, so else, then it means that the guess is less than a secret number. That's just the opposite, right? And so then we want this string. So let's copy that, put it here, and that's it. So I will give it a save. And now we can safely delete all of this here. Whoa, that's too much. Let's delete it. Or actually, let me just comment all of it so that you can still keep it here as a reference. Now here something is kind of wrong. Oh, and that's because I took away the closing curly brace here. So this one. And so now everything should be correct. Yeah. So you see the red underline is gone there now. And so let me explain again what we did here. So first we unified the two conditions that we had earlier, where the guess was either greater or larger than a secret number. Both of these basically mean that the guess is different than a secret number. And so we just created a block for that, because all of this code here is the same in both situations. The only thing that changes is the message that is displayed on the page. And so here we then basically determined that message with the ternary operator. So here is where we then asked if the guess is greater than the secret number. And if it is, then the text content here should be too high. But if it's not, then the text content should become too low. And remember that this works because the ternary operator is really an operator. And so it will return basically a value. Okay, so all of this here, all this operator will return a value, either this one here or this one. And so then that value is what will get stored in the text content of this message element. So let's now test this actually. So that's too low. Let's try 20. And that's too high. So it means that it's probably working. Let's try 17. Let's try 19. And so it's got to be 18. And yes, everything worked. And so our refactoring here was indeed successful. And I hope it made sense to you. You can just pause the video and review your code in case that it's not 100% clear yet. Okay? All right. So we fixed that by simply condensing two versions of almost the same code into just one. However, sometimes a good refactoring technique is also to create functions. For example, we have the same code here in multiple places. So this code where we set the message. So as I select this code here, VS Code will highlight all the same versions of the code in the entire file. So you see that we have this document.querySelector message.text content all over the place here, right? Well, at least 1, 2, 3, 4 times. Down here, yeah, here. So 5 times even. So that's a lot of duplicate code. And the same is true for setting the number, or for setting the score, or also, for example, for calculating this random secret number. We have the same code here and also here. And whenever that happens, we can also refactor this same code into a function and then call the function in all the places where we have the duplicate code. So basically, we can refactor functionality that we use over and over again into their own functions in order to make the code more dry. Now, I'm not going to do that into all the examples that I just mentioned, but I will do it with setting the message text content. All right. So what I will do is to copy this. Okay. And then I will create a function out here. And the function will be called display message. So it's a function, and the parameter will be the message. And then in the function block, all we will do is this repeated code, so setting the message, and then we will set it equal to the message that is passed into the function. All right. And now to show you how it works, well, let's just use it down here. So instead of this, let me comment it out. I can now simply say display message and then with this string. So this string is now the argument. Okay. And so this argument is what will become the message here in this function when I call it, right? And so then here we say document.querySelector for the message.text content should be the message that we just passed in. That makes sense, right? And so basically we took this code here, which is responsible for setting the message, and put it into this display message function that we can now use everywhere instead of having this repetitive code. And just to show you that it works, let's now just actually do this. So clicking here without any content. And so now we should see the no number displaying here just like before. And indeed, it works just fine. So let's now go ahead and replace all of these occurrences of this same code. I will not delete them, I will just comment them out, but you can go ahead and delete them from your code base if you feel like it. Instead, let's just use always display message, because that is a lot cleaner. Also, this really shows what we're doing here. So when we're reading the code, we don't have to really understand what's happening. So if we try to read this code like 1 year from now, and if we then come here, we have to try to understand what all of this means here, right? But instead, if we simply have a function called display message, it's a lot easier to simply read the code and say, okay, this here probably means to display a message, and this here is going to be the message, right? That's a lot easier to understand when you read the code later. And that's also an important thing in web development. So here is another one, and this is the one that we just refactored earlier. So this one is going to be a little bit different. So display message, and now here we need the argument. But that's no problem. We can simply do the exact same thing that we did here. So let's just grab this, and now we can comment this out, and actually this one too, and just paste it here, right? And so now, according to this condition here, the argument will either be too high or too low, because the result of this operator, once again, will be either this first string here or this second string. And so that will then be the argument, and the message will then be displayed accordingly. Okay, here, once again, display message, you lost the game. Okay, and down here there's another one. Yes, here. So display message. And give it a save. And so now everything should work the same. And yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, everything works just the same, but our code is a little bit more dry now. And as I said, you could do the same for all the repetitive stuff here, which I will actually not do here because that takes too much time. But you can, of course, have some fun and do it on your own. But there's really no need to do it. I just wanted to make a point here that this is a really important thing that we do when we write real code. So always keep refactoring in mind when you write your own code. And of course, we will do a lot of refactoring throughout this course. Anyway, with this, we finished this project. Again, I really hope that you liked it and that you maybe showed it to a friend or so and told them that you did it in this course, and yeah, how much fun it really is to build something like this. Next up, we have another project, which is also going to be really fun because we will build a real UI component, and that's going to be a modal window. So stay tuned for that one once you finished this one and really understood how all of it worked.